Well, good morning, everyone,
Good morning, Tom.
and welcome to all my fellow goldfish and to those that got C's like I did. I actually thought C meant complete. I completed the work. So anyway, um, today, today we're going to look at Edgar Villanueva's 7 steps to the healing process. And then I'm going to present a list of what we might try and do to help decolonize wealth. And part of that will be a short video clip by, by a Black entrepreneur and a rapper who is doing some very, very important decolonizing effort for the people of color of this nation. And then we're going to, I'm going to give you the meaning of Negani Benishi. I don't know if you're all weighted with bated breath, but anyway, to me, it was a really inspiring name. It was an inspiring story. So stick around to hear that.
Yeah, don't leave now.
Anyway, on to how to heal. But before, I want to read a little paragraph from the beginning of a book called Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. It's called The Vitals of History. The Vitals of History. Looking beneath the history of one's country is like learning that a disease runs in your family. You may have inherited it, but you cannot change it. Instead of feeling guilty or shameful, most people would educate themselves on this condition. They would go out and study it and find out what treatments there are, or they may even try to take precautions to protect the succeeding generations. America is an old house. It has many problems, from cracking foundations to broken systems. Choosing to ignore these problems do not make them go away. You may not have had anything to do with the sins of the past, but we are the current occupants of this house. We live here now, and we must examine and fix the structure that was built long ago. We cannot fix a problem unless we can see and acknowledge it. And I thought that was very, very powerful. So on to how to heal. Tessa, could you put up the screen share those 7 steps for me? And I do have to, in all due diligence, say that the 7 steps that we're going to be going through are probably the last half, probably about 100 plus pages of Edgar's book. I obviously am going to try to capsulize the best I can on each one. So how to heal? We must embrace a new paradigm of connect, relate, and belong instead of divide, control, or exploit. So let's go on to the 7 steps. Number 1 is to grieve. And keep in mind that Edgar was actually talking to the foundations and the philanthropic organizations that he had seen and had belonged to. But he's also speaking to us. So we must grieve, and we must grieve for all of those who have suffered, and are traumatized, who have been disrespected, displaced, and dispossessed. And we must grieve for our children who will embody this trauma for future generations to come. We are going to feel bad. We have to admit that. We will have guilt and we will have shame. But this is a part of the process and cannot be short-circuited. Number 2 is to apologize. I think I think Emily would say that I probably apologize more than anybody she's ever known. I'm good at it, but anyhow, to apologize. We cannot erase what was done or reverse the injustices committed. But an apology has the potential to transform. It clears the air to begin reconstructing the broken connections. I apologize for my ignorance and my harm. I apologize for my unconscious racism and white supremacy. Number 3, listen. I think I sometimes have this problem also. I don't listen like I should, and I always want to interject. But if you want to learn, you must give up talking. That sounds hard, doesn't it? You must get humble and you must listen. Listen in color and have empathetic listening, which puts us in the shoes of the speaker. Number 4, to relate. Well, relationships are our greatest asset. Cultivate a strong, authentic, and caring human connection, like we do on Sunday morning. Create an atmosphere in which relationships come first. Relationships create resilience. Be authentic. And by being authentic, you're going to be vulnerable. Let yourself be seen for who you are and accept the other person for who they are. Number 5, represent. Using money as medicine requires a deep, authentic knowledge of the issues. Knowledge comes from living inside of a community and experiencing it for oneself. We must get close to the things that matter. Get close to the places where there is inequality and suffering, where people feel oppressed, burdened, and abused. See what it does to you. Number 6 is invest. Invest our time, invest our talent, invest our money. Be philanthropic. Invest in companies that now invest in socially responsible ways. And step 7, repair. Reparations are due. We must use our money to heal the racial wealth gap. And that's what we'll be talking about the rest of this morning. We can support local reparation funds, local or state trust funds, to which Native Americans and African Americans can apply for grants. Support by investing in companies and institutions that give fair wages. They are active in local housing projects and make funds available for business startups. And so there we have a quick view of the 7 steps to heal. And now I want to, before I have Gwen play this this little video clip that I'm really excited about, because I think I mentioned a little while back, if anybody has seen the movie The Banker, it is about 2 ingenious Black entrepreneurs in the 1960 Los Angeles area who hatch a plan to buy a bank in Texas. Okay, now think about this. 2 Black entrepreneurs from Los Angeles go to Texas to buy a white bank. Okay, why do they want to do this? Because they have this deep feeling that people down there are not getting what they deserve. They don't get loans, they're downtrodden. And so they go there to help them do that. Well, as you can imagine, things go awry. and they end up in jail. And by the way, this is a true story, because a black man can't own a white bank in Texas in 1960. Oh no. Anyway, I want to show this clip, and then after the clip, I want to let you know how his bank is doing, and from there we'll go on. Gwen, can you go ahead and show that for me?
Blacks get favoritism. This is about saying blacks have been denied a fair shot, period.
Grammy Award-winning rapper Killer Mike has a new mission. The activist and performer, also known as Michael Render, is starting Greenwood. The bank is Black-owned and almost completely digital, and it's hoping to support Black entrepreneurs and business owners.
It's a banking platform, but it's one intentionally set out of our community and goes directly to our community. This is a platform set up not to gouge you on your payday. This is a platform that understands sometimes rent comes 2 days before the check comes, and they help you by compensating for that, by fronting you that. This is a platform for the young family, for the young person trying to get their piece of the American dream by setting up a cornerstone of financial stability and financial literacy.
Who is Greenwood's target customer?
Well, the target customer, as advertised, is the unbanked, Black community, Latinx community, and again, I add the white working class community to consider Greenwood, because I think it will give you financial control that right now you're being denied by big banks leaving your communities and neighborhoods and leaving you with only liquor stores and check cashing places to deal with.
What are the larger banks just not understanding when it comes to Black-owned businesses and Black entrepreneurs?
My wife and I started a barbershop 8 years ago. We've grown to 3 locations with plans on expanding to 10. If you go to a typical bank, a large bank, and you say, well, I want a loan, I want to grow my barbershop, they're going to say, we're not going to invest in a business only making 24 grand a year. They don't understand that the barbershop is essential in the working class community, especially the Black community, as a Black social club. Now, a Black bank or a Black banking platform like Greenwood understands that Black guys go get their hair cut every single week. And if I see a customer 4 times a month, not only is that 4 $25 haircuts, $120 spent a month with my business or my barbers, that is 4 opportunities I have to add on sales, whether that be a brush or wave cap grease, so that $25, $30 purchase, by the time that person now leaves, turns into a $50, $75, $100 purchase.
Greenwood, it's not just focused on giving capital to entrepreneurs, it's also going to give financial counseling, I understand. Why is that piece of the puzzle important?
You have to learn how to be a business person. You know, most Americans understand the lemonade stand concept of business. But as you get more layered, if you want to open up 10 barbershops, the question becomes for me as a rapper, do I spend $500,000 of my own money, or do I raise the funds to do this? Before, I just would have went out and figured out getting $500,000 myself and dumped money into it. And now I understand the power of group, the power of coin, the power of collective coin. And I needed those lessons, so I know other people do. It's time that there is a system from a banking or banking platform that helps the young entrepreneur mature into the seasoned entrepreneur.
Greenwood is set to open later this year. Already, more than 400,000 customers are on the wait list.
What will symbolize to you that Greenwood has been a success?
Happy customers that are banked. I want to give the kid who's 22 years old now, I want to give him an opportunity to save his money. I'd like to give him and his family an opportunity to build wealth by buying their first home in their 20s or early 30s and not waiting to their 40s or 50s out of necessity because they've had to and have paid 20 years of rent. Customers that are able to grow their business, customers that are able to get their first home loans, that will be a success for them.
Wow.
Thanks, Gwen.
Oh, man.
So this video clip was last year. Was he successful? How many think he was successful? Boy, I do, and I'll tell you why. Here is an update on the Greenwood Bank. They, at that point in time, had 400,000 people on their waiting list. They get about 2,000 customers every 24 hours, and they are thriving. So what else do they do? Well, being a digital bank might scare some because it's not a brick and mortar company. but they are true. They are truly at a point where it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is or what your heritage is. It's digital banking. So where are they today? They are fully open, and they have on their board of directors Andrew Young, who was an ambassador. They have all sorts of notable people, and actually they have they have others that are from the entertainment business. And today you can open an account. Once you do, they will feed 5 meals to a family of need. So everybody that signs up, they give away 5 free meals. And through them, you can donate to the Martin Luther King Center, the United Negro College Fund, and many others. And once a month, they give away $10,000 free to a Black or Latinx business. So, wow, when you become a member of that bank, you are really reaching out to the community in need. Okay, so last week I was taken by Ken Root's question, what can I do? I mean, I need to know right away, what can I do? Well, there's one thing you can do. You can become a member of that bank. And actually, I've been involved in digital assets and digital ledger transfers and blockchain technology for 3 years now. It kind of drives Emily crazy. But this is the future. It's trustless, and it doesn't know who you are. It can't say, no, I won't give you a loan because you are Black or you're Latinx or you're a person of color or a Native American. And I think that's one way to do it. That's great. So some of the things that I am going to strive to do to help decolonize wealth. And one is I'm going to make sure that my investments are not in damaging companies or organizations that do harm to people or to the earth or to our planet. Now, we all know what some of those are. Some of the 5 worst companies in America, and I'll list them if you'd like, are Monsanto, Archer Daniels Midland, and just about every energy company and fossil fuel organization there is. But the last one kind of gave me a little bit of a, raised my eyebrows. Number 5 was tied by a lot of people. And it might surprise you also. T. Rowe Price, whoa. Fidelity, Vanguard. Whoa, what are they doing in that list? So I had to dig a little bit deeper. Well, why they're there is because when people invest in them through these investment houses, they invest in these companies that are destroying our planet. And all they want is the biggest return on investments that they can get. Foundations and philanthropic organizations do the same. They only pay out about 2% of what they make. The other 95, to people, yes.
People of color.
Correct. The other 95% goes to fund these companies to keep their income stream alive. So what am I going to do? Well, I want to make sure that if I have a 401k or I have a stock plan, or if I don't, or whatever I have invested is not supporting these companies that don't support us. And we can do it. You just have to dig a little bit deeper to find out where they're going. Research it, Google it. I'm going to invest in local and state reparation trust funds. I think we all should look at that. We can invest in colleges or universities that give scholarships. And we should support Black universities. We should invest and support only in companies that help people through fair wages, etc. Does your bank or financial institution give out a free $10,000 a month to people that deserve it? Well, maybe we should look at it. Maybe we should change banks. And does your bank give out loans to people of color or marginalized? I doubt they do. Anyhow, I'm going to try and do this for myself and invest in companies that are environmentally friendly, and because they tend to treat their employees fairly most of all. Now, here's one thing I want you all to look at. This is one of the things that we can all do. In America, in the next so many years, there is going to be the greatest transfer of wealth imaginable. Now, what do I mean by that? Our generation of people holds more wealth than any other generation before us or behind us. And what are we going to do with that wealth? We're going to pass it on. We're going to pass it on to our next generation or the generation after. They're going to have an immense power behind all of this wealth. And so what you can do is you can just say to my inheritors, I want 10% of whatever you get to go to so-and-so to support these institutions or to support these people of color or that are marginalized. I think our families would honor that. And that's something that we have direct control over. So I guess in a nutshell, that's some of the things that I think I'm going to do. I'll open it up for some questioning in a little bit and see if you have anything you might want to add, or if you have any questions, that'd be great. But first, I want to give Win his Indian name. Nagani Banashi. Doug, did you find out what it was? He's not there.
Yeah, he's still on.
Yeah, no, I did not, Tom.
Okay, well, here it goes.
Yeah.
So Edgar Villanueva was employed by a foundation, and he became colonized, and then he was let go. So he ended up getting a job with the Indian Health Board and was attending a conference in Denver one day.
You're fine.
I'm good. Okay. And while he was there, he noticed that people were going into this room, and in this room was an Ojibwe medicine man. And so he said, wow, what are they doing in there? And he said, well, they're going in and they're talking and they're getting wisdom. And he said, well, I'd like to do that. And so he went in to talk to this medicine man, and he said to him, there's one thing my nation doesn't do, and that is give us names. I'd like you to give me a name. And so he thought about it a while, and he came up with Negani Benishi. And he goes, well, what does that mean? And he says, it means leading bird. Leading bird. The bird that leads all the others in their formation. Well, he left. He said, wow, that's, and then he started realizing how powerful that really was. He was a leader in his formation to transform foundational funding to help people. So, we've always looked up in the sky and seen birds flying in a V formation. Well, that when birds fly together, they cut the wind for each other, all except for the one in the front. This one has to bear the full force of the wind. He has to stick his nose out. He has to pick the right way. He sets the tone. All the others in this formation have a deep trust and belief in this leading bird. But guess what? Guess what happens? After a while, the lead bird gets tired, and he goes to the back of the V formation and rests, and the next bird in line moves up to become the leader. That's so powerful. Anyway, he moves up and he takes over and he lets the leader take a rest. Job well done. By working together, the flock is greater than the sum of its parts. And so, Nagani Benishi, I thank you. Okay, let's open it up to some questions and
Well, first, I think we should give a round of applause to that presentation. That was really, really good. Thank you, Tom, so much. So thought-provoking. Wow. Now I'll be quiet. What do you all want to say to him or to us? Tom, on the seven things you started out with, I was just really emotionally affected as you started talking, and I started looking at those words, and I thought about George Floyd and how, you know, we've looked at and marveled at the impact that that has had in our world. And I just feel like, you know, grieving, apologizing, listening, all of that kind of energy. I think all of the people that have gathered in those protests and are fighting for justice were in some ways responding to those and to those actions that you talked about out of those 7 steps. So anyway, I just wrote down George Floyd while you were talking there at the beginning.
Ken.
Getting real practical for a minute, and I appreciate the practical examples you gave. Okay, suppose you're invested in a mutual fund, because to be honest, I don't think most people invest in individual stocks.
Correct.
So, and I know there are some mutual funds that are designed to be, you know, considerate of the environment and other issues. But let's say that you, within your group of funds, can't just transfer to that kind of a fund, and you would have to sell from a fund and then buy into another one, which would have some commission cost, I suppose.
Yes.
Is that what I'm saying accurate?
Well, yes, I think what you're saying is very accurate. A lot of times these big companies put, you know, they make a list of stocks in an ETF, and they don't always put those damaging ones at the top. They put them at the bottom. They give you the top 10. They tell you what you're investing in, but they really don't tell you that these companies, to get a high rate of return for their money market funds, even invest in these companies, which give them a high rate of interest, so they can do that. Just look and see if you've got it. You know, I mean, everybody knows that fossil fuels on the way out, but these are very damaging companies, but they also receive billions of dollars a year in support from foundations and from these investment companies. Just make sure that you're not investing in something that you don't want to be invested in. If this is harming someone or harming the country or the planet, I do not want to invest in it. I also want to let you know that foundations, I found an article the other day that foundations have now turned from investing in a lot of fossil fuel companies. They're getting the picture. They're saying, okay, the people that fund us don't really want us to do this anymore. Well, it's taken a long time to realize that these companies are harming us. They're killing our planet. And, you know, if you have a 401k or a teacher's pension or whatever, what are they invested in? Do I just throw my money at them and say, give me the highest rate of return you can give? Or do I actually consciously believe that what I'm giving them to invest in is doing some good for someone or for the planet? What are they actually investing in? So, you know, a transaction is not human. It's just a transaction, you know. And let's invest in something where we're going to maybe form a relationship, or that someone is being helped by this. So, you know, I just don't want to invest in something that's going to hurt someone else. And I need to do some research on it. That's what I'm saying.
Doug?
Tom has, in anything that you researched, did the term ESG come up? It's an acronym for environmental, social, and governance. And it's really a commitment that many mutual funds are beginning to plug into, so that their investments are in companies that are environmentally, socially, and governance conscious.
Right. Yes, and I haven't heard that term, but I have noticed that some of the ETFs are socially responsible.
Right.
So you kind of have to, you almost have to look at what companies are in there, because a lot of times they form the ETF. Okay, they form.
What is ETF?
I'm sorry, the I've forgotten what it is already. So I'm a goldfish, right? But anyway, they put all these companies in there for you, and they make it look good. But then you realize, well, maybe at the bottom, that's not who I want to invest in, And
But and here again, you said take a look at your mutual funds, and Ken asked, well, you'll have a transfer fee to get out of one fund and into another one, and you're absolutely right. There will be a cost to sell and buy.
yes,
And
but I think that's the cost that we have to bear.
That's
yeah,
the
what is more important to you? Yeah, you have to answer the question. You have to answer the question yourself. What is more important to you, to be invested in the right thing, or to avoid some costs?
Right.
Now, our 401ks are managed by a mutual fund company, and I sit down with that financial advisor periodically, and I said, okay, so here's what I want to be invested in. I don't want to be in fossil fuels.
Right.
So take me out of any fund that has fossil fuels in it and put me into something that is environmentally conscious, like water, like renewable energy. And so that's what his job is. His job is to do what you tell him. And he has to be the guy that understands the market, understands all the ramifications, and understands that 15th company in the list of companies in that mutual fund is really not something you'd want, and avoid that fund.
Right. And I was reading something to Emily the other day, and I need to do more research on this. And this doesn't have to do with investing, but it has to do with the government. Remember, I was saying the government is actually looking at a reparations bill. And it said, I said to myself, oh my goodness, are we moving forward to that point where now we're even starting to think that, yes, there is some reparations due. Anyway, I have to blurt those out, or I forget them half the time. But you're right, Doug. There's going to be a price to pay, but that's something you have to ask yourself. Do I really want to continue this, this long relationship with a company that's harming myself or my planet, or do I want to change?
Vida, would you like to say something? Okay, you have to unmute.
Okay. Hi, it's Vida.
Hey.
Two things. I guess the one was that in leaving, if it's chosen that you would want your heirs to invest a certain percentage of the inheritance to a particular cause or to a particular organization or company, instead of asking them, you can designate that in your will, and that way you make sure that it happens.
Yeah.
Also, I was just going to say ETF, exchange traded funds.
Thank you.
I forget it too, and so yeah, I know, I feel your pain. And then and then the other thing was that I didn't know if it had been explained previously what the significance of this venture that's being started, being named Greenwood is, because there's a historical significance to that.
Yes, there is. Would you like to tell us that? Because I was thinking, well, we can't burn this Greenwood down.
Yeah, that's true. although it could be hacked. Years ago, there actually had been a very successful development. When I say years, I mean a long time ago. Very successful development in Oklahoma of Black businesses, financial institutions, and everything that we're talking about now. And apparently it was seen as a threat, just as it is now if wealth falls into the hands of people of color, and it was burned down. It was called Black Wall Street. And it was near Tulsa, Oklahoma, and just Greenwood was where it was. And so that's the historical significance to the name of the organization that is taking on this endeavor.
Sure.
Thank you for that history.
Mhm.
Thank you, Vita.
Can I say something?
Sure, Emily wants to.
I actually figured since Tom was leading this, I maybe should read the book. So I finally finished it last night about 10:30. My eyes are closing, you know. But the very last 2 pages of it said something that I thought it really hit me. And there were 2 stories. One about that relates to some of the things we talked about last week. It says, as Desmond Tutu writes in the Book of Forgiving, because as you remember, he was part of the reparations team in South Africa. When we assault another's humanity, we assault our own humanity. Every person wants to be acknowledged and affirmed for who and what they are. A human being of infinite worth, someone with a place in the world. We can't violate another's dignity without violating our own. Violence, whether in words or deeds, only begets more violence. And the reason that hit me was something that Sharon said last week, and maybe other people echoed it. But in the book, My Grandmother's Arms by Resmaa Menahem, it talks about the relationship between, or how we're all damaged by the violence we experience or the violence we do, and the inequalities we experience or the inequalities we perpetrate. So I thought that was very powerful. So the second part was just follows. It says, it made me remember footage I'd seen of a young woman at Standing Rock. The day after she and her fellow water protectors had been gunned down by the militarized police and National Guard using fire hoses and mace and rubber bullets, the very next day, she trudged back to the armed forces, which probably were the Minnesota Guard. She trudged back to the armed forces with candy in her hands. The water protector walked right back up to the same guards and police, moving slowly, her open palms offering the sweets, the way you might approach a feral animal. And she said, it's not you. It's not your fault. We're not mad at you. We're praying for you. That young woman was reminding them in a different way to be Mitekuye Oyasin, all my relations. We are all related. We're all connected. The native way is to bring the oppressor into our circle for healing. Healing cannot occur unless everyone is part of the process. Let it begin.
Can I make a comment about an article in today's newspaper? The title is Historical Society Returns 114 Acres to Lower Sioux. The Native community sought to reclaim the land for decades. And this is a reparations example, I think, but just a little bit more. In an emotional ceremony this month, the Minnesota Historical Society officially returned 114 acres along the Minnesota River bluffs to the Lower Sioux Indian community. the chief of the community said, I don't know if this has ever happened before where a state gave land back to a tribe. And the Lower Sioux president said, our ancestors paid for this land over and over with their blood, with their lives. It's not a sale. It's been paid for by the ones that aren't here anymore. It's a fairly large article in the Minnesota section of the Sunday paper.
Thanks, Ken.
A quick question. So, well, hopefully, as many of you know, we have an anti-racism page on our website. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that out. And we do have resources posted there. So I don't know, are you collecting any resources for both the sort of donation side and the investment side? Is there anything that we could post there about this? Because that would be awesome.
I'm not collecting anything, but I sure can pass forward what I have.
So would you just send it, Barry, we just send it to you, or how would that work?
Sure. If you're putting stuff together, I saw like you had a Google Doc with the 7 steps. If you wanted to create a Google Doc, or if you just wanted to email me some things, because I think, as people have mentioned, there's a lot to look into here. There's a lot of research. I think maybe not to oversimplify, but it feels like the donation side might be a little bit more straightforward than the investment side in terms of how much research needs to be done. And I see that Julie had posted in the chat as well. Are there other suggested places? So I think everybody would enjoy having benefit from having a potential list to choose from, and maybe not our recommendations, but at least a place to start.
Right. To start. Yes, I'll do that.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Oh, Julie wants you to post the 7 steps. Oh, I see. I'm just reading all the chat things. We forgot about doing that. We're not so nimble with this yet.
Yeah, and we can post all that. So I'll have this discussion, so again, if you go out and look at that page, some of these after discussions that we've been having are posted there, the video of those, and I'll post this as well. And so the 7 steps for people as a Google Doc would be great, and any other resources we have.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you all.
And Emily, I want to thank both of you for your comments. Emily, your comments at the end were very powerful. And Tom, just a huge thank you. That was
Thank you.
so powerful, put together with Gwen's service, which I found very powerful and emotional.
Mm.
Of course, I find everything emotional these days. So anyway, thank you.
With you. Tom, and Emily, I had one other thing to say. Emily, the comments that you made at the end struck me deeply, because yesterday I went up to White Earth Reservation, and the White Earth Indian community had an opening for a camp. And these camps are being built in several places along the Line 3 pipeline. And the camp that was opening yesterday with a celebration and a feast and prayer is a camp for healing. And the White Earth elders spoke, and there was a gentleman there from Oregon, from the Nez Perce Native community, and spoke. And it's everything that we're saying here is so in line with our Native brothers and how they live their lives. It's absolutely incredible. We need to get there.
Mhm.
To get back to the very beginning of this discussion, I happen to be a person who carries one of these weird genetic flaws. And I had a lot of professionals tell me, even though I was working from my gut and family history and everything but the medical truth, telling me that, I was nuts. Oh, it's not going to be a problem. Oh, there's nothing wrong. So that's one thing I think that is also going to run along with this whole systemic racism as a genetic disease idea. There's going to be a lot of people, a lot of voices voices of authority saying, no, it's not there.
Mhm.
And you should be prepared for that and ready to counter it.
Right.
Thank you.
One of the things that hit me when I read that last thing was a memory of when you first came to PCA, Gwen. And I think we didn't know each other. I mean, we didn't know each other very well, but I was still head of worship way back then. Oh my goodness. But I remember one Saturday night or Friday or Saturday night, you sent me a text message saying, now, Emily, don't worry if I'm not there tomorrow, I might be arrested. And I'll never forget that. I'm going, what? It all had to do with this, that I believe it had to do with this very situation that I read about the pipeline
Standing Rock.
at Standing Rock, where you were going to go down and be one of the demonstrators downtown Minneapolis, because Minneapolis had sent some of their officers up there, I believe. Am I right in that, Gwen?
Yes.
So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, well, this is current, or, within my current memory. And
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
That
Yeah.
was,
but it was a shock to think I was going to have to say the next morning, well, I'm sorry, Gwen's arrested. So here I am leading the service.
For a noble cause.
we were inside the city hall and blocking the door to, it was about 15 of us blocking the door of the sheriff. At that point, the sheriff was the focus. He was the one that was really making bad decisions. And there was a lot of press there. And there was a city councilwoman there who was with us. And basically what happened is the people huddled with the law enforcement and said that they were just going to wait us out because they couldn't afford the publicity of having a city councilwoman arrested in the city hall where she had her office. So I actually I have some medication that I take, and I'd already texted AJ to tell her she was going to need to find a way to get that to the jail, but then they just kind of backed off.
So there you were being, how do you say it?
Nagani Benishi.
Yeah, there's our leading bird.
Well, Tom, I just echo everybody else, man. That was a beautiful presentation.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah, John.
Emily, I feel your pain as far as, and the thing with Gwen and being arrested. Every time Doug goes up to do his protesting for Line 3 in northern Minnesota, or even when he goes and does the bridge thing, I go, okay, am I going to have to bail you out? So whenever he comes home, it's nice. And like last night, he got home from the northern Minnesota thing. Oh gosh, I think it was like 10:30 or something like that. So it's always a sigh of relief when he comes home and I don't have to go to a sheriff's office and bail him out of jail.
Yeah, yeah.
Doug, thank you so much for doing that on behalf of those of us who can't. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome. And I will emphasize that March 11th, we will try and do something. And there could possibly be some arrests, so set up a bail fund.
Take your medicines with you.
Yeah, take your cookie jar. You got to keep putting money in your cookie jar. Or maybe we should put money in your cookie jar.
Yeah.
We should put a little thing out front, and like with next to Dino at church. Feed the children, and then help Doug out of a predicament.
Doug's bail money.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, once again, thank you all for
and
staying.
we'll look forward to the next presentation and discussion from the Anti-Racism Task Force. We're so appreciative I don't know if Julie's still on or not. I think she had to go, but thank you, Julie, for being our leader in that.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Have a
everyone.
good day.
Vida?
Vita's still there. Uh-oh, I think she just, oh, there she is.
Oh, you.
I needed to unmute. Yes.
No worries. I just wanted to thank you for the last time we spoke, you suggested some black lit, and I just wanted to thank you for that. I started Beloved by Toni
Oh,
Morrison.
did
I'm
you?
about halfway through, and it is amazing. It is
She's
so
a
good.
wonderful writer. There was a
Oh,
program
man.
on writers. My mother was mentioning to me when I had seen her yesterday. I was out there, and she was one of the writers that they were talking to. Yeah, she's a fabulous writer.
Yeah, I love her writing style. It's so masterfully done. I think it's gonna be probably one of my favorite books of the year for sure.
Oh,
For
really?
me. Yeah. It's nice to get a really good one in like early in the year. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
there's some great books out there by some writers that have they incorporate real life along with fiction. So even though it's a novel, it's incorporating, like I said, there's so much truth in fiction.
Yeah, totally. I've been like kind of researching as just as she brings some things up, and I've been learning a lot more. So yeah, it's been great. And I think next I'm gonna go with The Fire Next Time, because
Oh, by
James
James
Baldwin has
Baldwin.
been on my
Yes.
list for so long too.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Like I
yeah.
said, that's my favorite author. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for
You're
like, you
welcome.
really inspired me to just like prioritize, especially with it being Black History Month. So yeah, just thank you so much.
You're welcome. And speaking of that, PBS has had some great programming this month. They've continued to air the series, well, it's actually not a series, it's actually one episode, and it's also online on their website if somebody wants to watch it. But it's the history of what happened with like redlining and real estate in the Twin Cities, and why the wealth shifted, how the wealth was kept from being built in the communities of color, and the whole history of it, so that it's better understood where things are at now.
Oh, wow. What do you know what that program was called?
I know what it's called, and now I'm trying to think. Oh, Jim Crow of the North.
Jim Crow of the North. Okay. I will check that out. That sounds really fascinating.
It's
So
interesting.
thank you so much.
Sue Certain, you got to unmute. Oh, there you
There
go.
are two other items to mention along that line. And thanks, Vida, for mentioning the Greenwood. There was a special one called Going Back to T-Town. And I heard Greenwood, and then when you started to explain it, I said, aha, I just seen that. And that was on last week. So they'll probably repeat it at some point again. And then also there is a two-part series, I think that repeats this coming week on by Henry Louis Gates on the Black Church. And I watched that. That was very interesting. Somewhat that I knew from growing up, but mostly it was new, and much of it was new, and it was very insightful. And
that's why, when I was being asked about if there were any books I could recommend on anti-racism, that's why when I was growing up and I was reading books, by either Black authors or on Black history, I focused on learning the history because by understanding the history, it allowed me to understand why the racism today or at that time was occurring. Because without a context to put the anti-racism in, it's hard to see. It's like you said, they said, well, it's not out there, it doesn't exist. But there needs to be a context to understand why it's so systemic and why it's such a challenge to deal with.
Well, thank you all for being here.